Welcome back to The Evil Within. This is our You Asked For It achievement run. Therefore, it's a new game on Akumu difficulty. We're about midway through Chapter 10, getting close to the end of the Marathon of Misery. Marathon of Misery ends after the next two. People hesitate to call them bosses because they're not the boss of the chapter, but by all rights, they're almost our bosses. The next two traumas of Ruvik's life, the two traumas together representing the time that he had to spend in the basement locked away by his dad, and when Mobius dissected him and turned him into Ruvik himself. There's a difference on Akumu that isn't on the other difficulties. Namely, this guy will turn around, the haunted will turn around. There's also another haunted that's farther off there. So even if you try to get behind him, the other haunted's standing there looking at him. So you're not going to be able to start this with stealth the way you normally do. What I found works best is to wait until they get all the way around that first corner where you can lock them in here. Use agony bolts, use your shock bolts to freeze them, then start using explosive browns when they're free. That animation, we talked about that in the last one. When they start to break that pillar on the back, you know that you've done a significant amount of damage. It also takes them a little while to make that break. By having them both there, you're likely to catch them with that second bomb in there. That actually killed one of them already. You can use this proximity bomb here. You can set it off with your shock agony bolt and get another explosion on them, as well as hold them there for long enough for you to pump some more at least one more harpoon into them. There are a couple of harpoons on the walls that you can pick up. This proximity bomb on this wall is added for Akumu. Makes it slightly more difficult, but you can see that he was already dead by the time we were over there, so we were prepping more agony bolts, but didn't need to. Now, something I wanted to point out about the difficulty of Akumu, and something that I think is not really stated clearly. You'll watch a run on YouTube like this, and I killed both of those agonies. You'll see other runners not even try to kill them. They will just stage electric bolts run by them, and they'll stage them where they don't get to them in time to open the gate and get by. The reason for there being two different approaches is because it varies so much. Every run varies so much. And you'll watch me run this. You know that I'm not the best hand-eye coordination. I'm not the best at making the runs. I'm not the best technician at doing it. I can come up with good strategies, but I can't always even implement them consistently. But what really irritates people about Akumu is they'll watch other people do it, and then you go to do it, and it doesn't work. And you just feel dumb and like, I must be incompetent, I can't do this. Don't feel that way, honestly. I mean, you saw that. If I didn't tell you, it looks like I just breezed through that. I mean, few bolts and it was done. That did not look like a big battle. It was hours of my time. I'm telling you, it was hours of my time. It was not easy. It was not easy to figure out even what was going on with the two people at the beginning. Trapping them in the hallway, getting lucky enough that they stepped just right to where the bomb at the end goes off on them. All of that, it looked so simple. It won't work that way for you. Not until you've tried it 5, 6, 7, 8 times. I promise you. When you're watching people run and it looks so easy, they're not telling you what's happening behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, they're reloading their checkpoint. They're reloading their checkpoint. They're reloading their checkpoint because it never works out exactly right. So don't give up on Akumu just because you're stuck and having to retry. Everybody gets stuck and has to retry. I promise you that the first time you try it, people get stuck and they have to retry. Now, sure, after a while, like I could probably go back and I could probably recreate that because I have muscle memory to tell me how to do it. And I remember seeing it go right. So watching somebody else do it can help, but I promise you when you go to try to do it, it won't work the same way. They won't be in the same place. Your bolts won't hold them in the same way. You won't get the critical hit that somebody else got. It's just, don't get overly frustrated, and don't think that just because it looks easy on YouTube that it was easy. It was hard. Okay, So this is basically kind of the end of the Marathon of Misery. And the reason I call it the end of the Marathon of Misery is because up until this point in chapter 10, so all the way through all that carnival of death, and then the other trapped rooms below it, and the first trauma, and then these two traumas, all that happens without you being able to go back to the sanctuary and save. It's particularly a bad experience for me, because by not being able to go back to the sanctuary and save means I don't have clean cut-ins for the YouTube videos to make it a seamless looking run. So hopefully you're not filming for YouTube and you can use those breakpoints.
Everything I have, everything I am, has been taken from me since the accident by those who seek to consume me. They are in the darkness, with only the phantoms of my mind to comfort me, to taunt me. I nearly lost myself completely. But then I saw her. Deep down I know she was only an apparition. But I would regain my face, recover what was taken from me, restore her, my beloved sister, Laura.
You can see this kind of confirms what we were saying, that, when they were burned, Laura was essentially taken away from him. Even what he sees are just ghosts and apparitions that aren't real. But that memory of her is what saved him in the basement. And all he wanted to do was bring her back. And we've talked about how that doesn't work. I will point out in there, he mentions, I will get my face back. So he's also concerned about not really his physical appearance. I mean, it's more of, it's not just, I'm not worrying about whether I'm pretty or not.
February 27, 2012. I've watched friends and colleagues die before. It's part of the job I've taken. And it's never easy, but nothing can compare to losing your own child. I die a million times over to prevent it, but I can't. I feel so helpless when they lowered that tiny coffin into the ground. The pain is unbearable. I know I shouldn't, but drinking is the only thing that's let me sleep for the last few weeks. I'm worried about Myra. This has been extremely hard on her, and her way of handling it has been unnerving. She wants to be alone and has taken to staying up all night. Says she's doing work to keep her mind off the tragedy, but she seems to be closing herself off to the world. I know what tends to happen when couples lose a child, and I hope that we're strong enough to avoid it.
And Ruben's not specifically worried about being pretty or not. He's worried about the disfigurement. He hates his disfigurement. He sees his disfigurement, and probably rightfully so, as at least part of the reason his father locked him away in a basement. Now, I want to point out that
Have you forgotten something?
That personal note that we just read of Sebastian's about his daughter Lily.
Missing, Patrick Higgins, lawyer for the Victoriano family. Last seen meeting with a man believed to be a client.
This newspaper ties into it.
Home destroyed by fire. Daughter of police officer among victims. The bodies of Lily Castellanos, 5, and babysitter Juanita Flores, 56, were found in the charred home. Both of the child's parents are police officers with the Crimson City Police Department and were on duty at the time of the fire. Police are investigating as a possible arson.
Now, think about, so we just read how Sebastian viewed the death of his daughter and how he was worried about how Myra was responding to it. We've talked about how Myra, his wife, was responding, opening an investigation to see if the fire was arson or not arson. At this point, through this whole game, you'll never get an indication other than that Lily died. You see the newspaper article, bodies found, so it's not like she's just gone. She's believed to be dead. I'll leave that word believed in there for any of you that have, started the Evil Within 2. But as far as this game's concerned, we all think Lily is dead. Sebastian thought she died. Sebastian had a lot of the same sort of emotional trauma associated with that death that Ruben did, having lost his sister Laura in the fire. Again, we think she survived the fire because as she was comatose, but he's lost her, regardless of whether it's physical death or just lost. She's gone to Ruben. And then he sees her apparition in the basement and going through that same trauma. But I want to point out that their traumas are very similar. This becomes a very important factor to understand. In the DLC with Kidman, there's a specific conversation between a Mobius administrator and Dr. Jimenez, where Dr. Jimenez says that the reason Leslie is in sync with Ruben is because of a shared trauma. Leslie's parents have been murdered in front of him. Ruben lost Laura in front of him. Okay, but Sebastian lost Lily in front of him. They've all three experienced very similar trauma of basically the core of their life, the thing that meant the most to them, whether it was Laura for Ruben, Leslie's parents, family, presumably parents, might be more than just parents, and Sebastian's daughter. You can't get more similar of scale of loss and sorrow. So if that shared trauma makes Leslie a conduit, if you will, for Ruben can download himself into Leslie. Why Leslie and not Sebastian? Okay. I mean, that's a very valid question. Why isn't Sebastian on that same brain frequency? We're going to talk about that. But first, let us talk a little bit about the lore fight that's coming up here. You see that we're in an area where she starts off in a cage. It's interesting that she's confined in a basement, if you will. Depending on who you ask, there's a debate about whether the lore boss fight is the number 3 Rage Quit or whether or not the Sentinel in Chapter 6, the dog that I had so many problems with, is the number 3 Rage Quit point. But either way, they both rank right up there with some of the most frustrating parts of the game, especially on Akumu. You can see here that just getting through those gates on Akumu is sort of a crapshoot. I mean, you're just rolling the dice. Stay as close to those corners as you can, get through the gates as quickly as you can, but just know that there will be times, if you have to run it multiple times, there will be times that you die right there that quickly. There are also 2 zombies that come out there. If you go between them, I've never been grabbed by the second guy. Works through it. I wouldn't try for that green shell at the end of that hallway. That seems like a pure bait to die. A chance to respawn. Maybe if you had incinerate bolts, if you'd upgrade your crossbow, the harpoon bolts to incinerate bolts, you might be able to pause her long enough, but you still have to deal with the haunted zombies that are coming out of the doors. So my advice is just go buy it. The reason the lore fight is such a rage quit point is because, once again, just like the burning rooms, which was the number 1 quitting point, the number 1 raging point, everybody agrees, Chapter 6, because it's so early in the game, the frustration of getting through those first 2 burning rooms is almost overwhelming for most players. The reason is that you don't even get an autosave checkpoint between the 2 rooms. That same thing happens in the lower boss fight here. Towards the end of the lower boss fight, you won't get autosave checkpoints. So far, we've gotten 1. Once we walk through that first set of big double doors that we pushed open, you can't go back. Just point out that there's a key there that we will not be getting, but I wanted to point out where it is. You have to kill Laura to get that. The only way you're going to probably kill Laura, I don't know if you can kill her if you don't have incinerate bolts. We talked about in an earlier chapter that I was specifically not upgrading my bolts to incinerate bolts because I thought Chapter 13 was going to present me with a room where I needed a crossbow. I needed the harpoon bolts without them being incinerate bolts. That turns out to not be true, so if you wanted to... Back there we spent quite a bit of green gel. If If you wanted to have spent that on making incendiary bolts, then you can probably kill her here. It would certainly make this fight easier and less expensive. But I didn't know that, so I didn't do it. So my whole goal had been to just get through this fight. I never intended to actually kill her. I do go through the steps of most of what you would need to do to kill her. Namely, like I'm going to burn her right here. Not this time around. I'm still waiting for the... Notice that the flames take a little bit longer. She's a little bit more persistent, a little bit more aggressive. She's definitely faster when she actually is running. She's very, very fast on Akumu. But you'll need to burn her in almost, if not every single one of those traps that you can, as well as catch her with matches. I paused there just because I wanted you to see how fast she can move. She can move from all the way over there to down there quickly. It's kind of a dangerous move on my part, but I wanted to catch her on camera for you. You need to burn her in this one. If you have incendiary bolts, you can of course use them to pause her long enough. If your goal is to get through it, you can use them to pause her. You need her paused and screaming so that you can get this. When you come around that corner, be very careful of that bear trap. That's why I was so far to my right at the time. I ran against that wall. Because, you know, the first time I ran straight into the trap, of course. So this, I noticed that I caught her in the trap by avoiding it and then leaving it there. You do some amount of damage to her with the trap. This is not the direction. You want to be very careful. Don't do what I just did there. If you can't, that was close as well. It's open. Run. Okay. You need to be going around that circle the other way so that you can hit that lever if you want to burn her there. If you're going to kill her, you probably need to burn her there. If you have enough incendiary bolts, you might be able to do it anyway. But you definitely want to make use of every lever you can. Now my approach to this area had to change from other difficulties. In other difficulties, I would shoot the switch to the right, then blow her up with the bomb, and then move to my left. Instead, I start with just get that bomb out of the way. You need it out of your way. Duck down. She won't see you immediately by you ducking down, and that gives you time to get rid of this trap. Stay ducked. Don't until you get out in the open there. If you're lucky, she will have gone all the way around that way, and when she sees you, instead of running at you, she'll try to jump to this body and burn her with the match. If you catch her with that match, you've got to catch her somewhere with a match. That's the easiest and best place to do it. Once you catch her there, shoot that switch, move to this body, catch her in this, shoot this, and the reason you do it in this order is because A, you can get to that body quicker, B, you can throw the last switch there. That switch immediately turns this off. You don't have to wait. So by burning her in that body that was right there by that, she had to jump to a different body that was farther along. Now what I found here is that you can flip this. You don't have to wait to try to trap her in there. And the other ones, she'll walk around the flames. But on the ones in here, you can literally throw them and she will walk into the fire. So it winds up not being too hard to catch her in there. She's kind of incensed with rage and she is just going to charge at you. Notice there were a couple of air traps that I threw down. Now, I knew that she was going to go to that body because that was pretty much the only body left. So I threw down the electric bolt there, paused her long enough. I use a grenade to get rid of the bomb that's on the backside of this wall. I get kind of exceedingly lucky there that she didn't grab me. Don't know why she didn't. Now there's no save point between this room and the previous room. If you die in here, you have to go back and do that previous room with the 3 switches that you have to turn off there. I've expended all my electric bolts. I'm now down to frost bolts. Take forever for that to go off, but once it's off, I can run. Again, like we talked earlier in the chapter, you can watch me do it. You can say, well, that doesn't look too bad. I can do those in that order. So the 10th or 11th time you're doing it, don't be too frustrated. Don't rage quit. If you're going to rage quit before you even start. Now, my honest advice is, unless you just can't stand to not have Akumu or Platinum on this game, then don't even attempt it. If you're not a if you don't always go for platinum on your games, then don't attempt this game platinum. Just leave Akumu along. Enjoy the discussion that we're having about the lore and watching me stitch together what looks seamless.
Who do you think you are? I know who you are. Seb. I know what you crave, what you fear. Will you be able to live with yourself knowing what I'm gonna make you do? Poor little Joseph couldn't. Too bad they dragged you into this. But either way, you're mine. To do with as I please.
Now, we were talking about that Sebastian should be on the same frequency. If real life trauma is causing the frequency that makes Leslie and Ruvik be able to synchronize, then Seb, as he called him, Sebastian, should be on the same frequency because he's had a similar trauma in real life. The key comes down to what we found while we were down in the Victoriano mansion. That the 3 brains that we had to probe, and we had to probe the 3 keys. We had to probe consent, was the first one we probed, then fear, and hope. The reason they may all be on the same wavelength is because the trauma that they experienced is hopeless. They can never recover from it. It was terrifying. Imagine the terror of the fire. Imagine the terror of seeing your parents murdered in front of you. Imagine the terror of just the thought of losing your child. Where things... Consent doesn't necessarily play a role in those things, in those 3 traumas, but the trauma of the hopelessness and the fear is put them all in the same kind of wavelength, if you will. Puts their minds kind of in a sync pattern. The classical construct that they've created here with fear, I mean, this is kind of a known psyop type approach, right? Well, let's let this play out because this is a critical cutscene.
Doc, what the hell do you think you're doing?
Trying to save us.
Really? Because it looks like you're making another monster to me.
I don't have time for this, Detective.
Neither do I.
Look how protective he is.
Leslie has been here before and made it back. He survived being linked to Ruvik, the only patient ever as far as I know.
Wonderful. What does that have to do with any of this?
He's our way out, Detective. Our only way back.
That sound!
No, it's working. Oh, thank God it's working.
Leslie, are you all right?
It should have. Why didn't it?
Same beast we ran from at the end of chapter 8 that led to the breach of the sanctuary.
That's why.
Doctor, run!
He wants the same thing as us. He wants out!
Now, to those of us that have been saying that from the first part of the first chapter, that doesn't come as a big revelation if you've been listening to the lore I've been talking about. But to Sebastian, that almost gave away all the keys to the kingdom there, right? We were told that Leslie is the only one that survived. That he's trying to synchronize brain waves there, and Leslie's the only way out. He got almost all the information he needed there, and we need to talk a little bit about why.
I know you're out there.
So
Listen to me.
we talked in one of the chapters for one of the lore in one of the chapters. We talked about Sebastian's winning the battle of finding out who Ruvik is, but losing the war of defeating Ruvik.
Ruvik must be really pissed now. Breaking a STEM terminal? Never thought he'd go that far.
Wait, STEM?
Oh, he must be close if he's severing ties with the past. All he has left is his connection to the present. The full STEM in the hospital.
Hospital? Beacon Mental Hospital?
That's where he'll be, waiting for him. If somebody doesn't get there first, there'll be no way out for anyone.
Okay, so we talked about Leslie being the key, and that Sebastian's
You have an odor of blood about you.
winning. An odor of blood. Yeah, I've been soaked in it many times.
Missing, Dr. Marcelo Jimenez, Chief of Staff at Beacon Mental Hospital, last seen in his office where he made a number of telephone calls. Irregularities at hospital. Investigation uncovers irregularities at mental hospital. Situation more complex than thought. Internal audit at Beacon Mental Hospital suggests patients missing. Chief of Staff Marcelo Jimenez cites clerical errors.
Those are just kind of laying the foundation that Jimenez died when it got crushed by the amalgam there, and that he was feeding the mental patients to Ruben before he became Ruvik, and then even again after he became Ruvik, because we heard him Leslie has survived that previously. So to win the war, you need to get Leslie out, and you need to get out with him without Ruvik gaining access to him, being able to overcome his mental fortress and download himself into it. Sebastian was winning the battles of finding out who Ruvik is, trying to get to the core of what's going on, but he's losing the war. He's already breached the sanctuary for Ruvik by running here in terror and panic from that beast once. We led Ruvik straight in here. We never see Leslie in the sanctuary again. So Leslie's sanctuary is breached. That was the number one check mark at the top of the list for Ruvik. The second check mark is don't let anybody get out without me being able to download into Leslie. So the only person that knew, we talked about the information difference between Kidman and Sebastian. Well, the difference between the information gap between Kidman and Jimenez was even greater. Once the sanctuary was breached by Ruvik at the end of chapter 8, beginning of chapter 9, when the footpath was established between Ruvik's home and the sanctuary, Leslie was no longer had any sanctuary. So he had no way to wait for Sebastian and Kidman to put it all together and save him anymore. Now he just needs out. He goes to Jimenez in chapter 9. You see him going with Jimenez through the mansion ahead of Sebastian. He goes to Jimenez at that point, get us out of here. And here we are in chapter 10. It almost worked. It almost got him out. But Ruvik squashed that rebellion, literally killing Jimenez. So at this point, the only thing that Ruvik needs to win is to get Leslie to be at Beacon Hospital where their bodies are before Leslie gets there and before Sebastian and Kidman, the only two left that could get him out, do that. So He's just got to scare Leslie enough to run in that direction, and he's got to keep Sebastian and Kidman working against each other on what needs to happen to Leslie. And that'll happen. You'll see that in the later chapters, starting, I think, in chapter 13 for sure. But we've gone from an arms race where Sebastian's trying to bolster himself with residual bioenergy, and Ruvik's trying to harvest bioenergy. Ruvik's trying to harvest it to breach the sanctuary. He no longer needs to breach the sanctuary. So now he can expend as much as 20,000 bioenergy on this amalgam, this huge creature that the first 2 times Sebastian saw it, he stepped back in horror. The first time he ran, and that's when the sanctuary was breached. In the room with Dr. Jimenez, he tells Jimenez to run, and he steps back and pushes Leslie back. So you know this is a big terror point for Sebastian. Now, of course, you're playing Sebastian, so you're going to decide not to be afraid of him, and you're going to fight him. But it's no longer an arms race about who can collect the most green gel, who can make the best use of the green gel. It's now a foot race to get to Beacon. If Sebastian and Kidman can get together and get Leslie there and get out, then they can win. If Ruvik gets there first, he wins. If he's there and is able to catch Leslie when Leslie gets there. So we've shifted now from, we first started off with kind of a brute force trying to just collect bioenergy, and that turned into an arms race between Sebastian and Ruvik. Then it turned into a campaign of misdirection. Look at me, I'm over here, come chase me, don't worry about Leslie. And now it's a foot race. So here's the key to this battle, and I missed that shot, but you need to pop those heads. Okay. And if you notice, I mean, this was something I did not notice on the previous difficulty levels. I knew he was just a big beast, took a lot of damage, but if you can pop the heads, when he steps back, you can dodge out of the room. If you don't dodge out of the room, he will grab you in the room and he'll beat you against the walls until you're dead. On any level, that pretty much kills you, even on casual. But I wanted to point out that there is an opportunity when you're stepped in there, when he comes up to it. Sometimes he doesn't even come directly there, and you can run in a different direction. Sometimes he comes directly there, and when he does, shoot him with a shotgun, try to pop more of those heads, get him to move. He's here again. I should run right now, but instead I shot an explosive bolt that seems to have paused him just long enough for him to get out. Probably should have run first, but I didn't. Now your goal is to, again, pop heads. Oftentimes, if you can catch that eye coming out, now you see he shifted into where, with that last head popping, he's now this creature with a big mouth and there's a big eye inside that mouth. And how that missed me, I don't know. How I wasn't killed by the frostbolt, I don't know. But I got lucky. And once you freeze him, or I've run out of shock bolts, so I'm on to the freeze bolts now. And you want to shoot as directly into that as you can, trying to hit the eye. Again, one of those fights that, took numerous attempts, but looks pretty smooth when it actually happens. So, okay, so we were talking about Jimenez. Jimenez had more information than even Kidman. He actually knows how to use the equipment. He's able to find a node, or I guess they called it a terminal for STEM. But Leslie, as the basically central processing unit for STEM, was able to find that terminal as well and shut it down. Basically shuts it down by squishing Jimenez with this big amalgam. You see that we got 20,000 green gel from that. The arms race, this is the point in the game where you start to feel like, wow, I really did good. Look at all this gel. I'm going to be able to arm myself up. I'm going to be so strong. You're not realizing that this is now a speed race, not an arms race. You need to get Leslie and you need to get out. and instead you're focusing on beating Ruvik. So you went from investigating who Ruvik was to now you're trying to beat him. You're still in the arms race. The rules of the game are changing constantly, and Sebastian's not keeping up with that. And we talked briefly about how this is kind of a classical psyop of fear leading to consent, which is basically consent to be governed, or consent to have your psyche governed. This is the end of chapter 10, so we're not going to have enough time to really cover that subject. It's a deep subject in the rest of this episode, but keep that in mind. I miss a explosive bolt against the wall there. Don't miss it. It's valuable. We won't have time to cover that lore or that concept in today's video, but we'll catch it in the upcoming videos. This is our chapter 10. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.